Tiffany and Caitlin are not here. So for the last 2 years, with one exception because it was a race I'd already signed up for ahead of time, Tiffany, Caitlin, and I always do these races together. And there's nobody sitting on this couch beside me right now. And that sucks. It's for a good reason, because they were off at Worlds yesterday in New Zealand. While I am happy that there's a reason, it's still sad and kind of lonely that it's just Katie and I here. And the alternative, of course, would have been for me just not to race at all and to stay home. If you go back to the beginning of the year, on January 1st, everything about my race plan has not gone to where I expected it to go. Right now, I'm in Haines City, Florida. This is the third consecutive Ironman 70.3 I've done this year. That was not on my schedule if you asked me what I was going to do a year ago. A year ago when I finished Indian Wells, I felt very excited for 2024 because I had a plan, I had all these goals, and then right from the get-go, life happened. In 3 weeks, I'm going to turn 40 years old, and I feel healthier and better than I did probably at any point in my 30s. I'm swimming, biking, and running faster at any point in my 30s. And let's just make this race a celebration to bid farewell to the 35 to 39 age group that has been kind to me on occasion, but more often than not has tormented me. And I cannot wait to be a 40-year-old man and be a young one in the 40 to 44 age group. Nobody has ever been more excited to turn 40 than me. So on race day morning, unpacked everything, got through transition pretty quickly, and I ended up having about an hour to kill before the swim. So I was just standing there waiting for the race to start. And it dawned on me that, I know my birthday is in a couple weeks, but it dawned on me standing there waiting to start the race that this day, this race, this is the last notable thing I'm going to do in my 30s. And what's funny is that took any pressure, and there weren't really nerves or pressure for this race because it was just sort of a fun way to wrap up the season, but it almost changed my mindset about everything with the day. And I noticed it a couple times throughout the race where this is more just a celebration race of everything that happened in my 30s. So let's just make it a great day and close out my third decade doing something I love. The swim was, it's perfectly mediocre is the best way to put my swimming skills in a term, and that's what it was. The water, obviously it's December, it may be Florida, but the water was very cold. That first 30 seconds, whenever you do these cold swims, it just is the most unpleasant experience, and your brain is like, what in the world? Why are you in this cold lake? What is the matter with you? But if you do enough of them, you learn that it passes. And after that, the water felt pleasant. It felt refreshing, certainly never got hot. I enjoyed the swim. The swimming for me is always a paradox because I'm not very good at it. Maybe someday I'll get a little faster, but if nothing else, it was an uneventful swim. This course is a little unique where it's an M-shaped course. So you go up, you turn, you turn, you turn, you turn, you turn, you turn. Could never just really kind of zone in and just swim for a bit, but didn't really have any incidents. There were some athletes who kind of meandered because people were having trouble sighting, but overall, uneventful swim, out of the water, and I was kind of bummed. The first kind of downer of the day. There were no wetsuit strippers at this race. We had to get out of our wetsuits ourselves in transition, and I don't know, it's beyond a time-saving thing, it's just fun. Onto the bike, and wow, you want to talk about some wind? That was the big headline of the bike ride for me. The day before the race, we had a cold front come through Central Florida. So there was no rain, there were no clouds. The temperatures were great and comfortable. But we had something like probably 15 to 20 mile an hour sustained winds, and there were occasional gusts higher than that. The bike course is basically just a big circle. So I know at some point I had a tailwind. I never noticed it. Sure felt the headwinds though. And every time we turned, it just felt like the headwind was coming with us and making the same turn. Pretty uneventful bike ride, which is I guess always a good thing to say. Some people that I was talking to were surprised, or they were cautioning before the race. They're like, this is not a flat course. And that's true. Central Florida has hills. And it was fine. I remember there were like 2 hills that kind of were a little bit of a grind. But I never got out of my big ring, and it was rolling hills. The thing that was kind of a bummer on the bike ride is most of the course is open to vehicular traffic. There were 5 different times I got caught behind a car that was driving at a speed slower than I was biking. And it's because they were caught behind a slow cyclist and either didn't feel comfortable or couldn't pass them. So we all had these like bottlenecks. And I don't think it cost me too much time, but it's just kind of a buzzkill when you're in a race and you're in that mindset and you're trying to hit like a certain wattage and a speed, and then you end up having to slow down and bike at 14 miles an hour. But like I said, I think having that mindset shift to this day is less a race and more of a celebration of your 30s and what you've done this year, kind of just shrugged it off. And before I knew it, back to transition. When I got there, the transition's a little weird because it's 2 different parking deck levels, so there's a lot of running involved to get to your spot. And I was fortunate to have a low number, so I'm right by the start. But when you come in on the other side, you got to run all around and stuff. So a little more running than I would prefer in a transition. But racked my bike, put on my running shoes, and I set off to go do the run.
Come on, Colin! Woo! Tif said race mighty!
Same kind of thing as the bike ride. I had read and heard people say that this is hillier than I thought it would be. And for me, it was fine. Same kind of deal. I remember there were 2 hills where it was kind of a grind. So you got them 4 times, twice in the first lap and then twice in the second lap. But it was fine. It was a really good run. And if I'm being completely honest, I was not running at 100% on this run. I left a little bit in the tank. Today, I was probably running at 95%. I left a little bit back there just because for this race, I knew it wasn't going to be a PR even before I started the run, just because of how the bike course and the headwinds and everything were. So I really made a point to just enjoy the run. It is my best discipline. It is my favorite discipline. And I have never had more fun doing a run in an Ironman event. I talked to a bunch of athletes, I talked to volunteers. I ended up having a pretty good time. I was only a couple minutes off of what my finisher time should have been. So it's not even like it affected my overall performance, but I'm really glad that I didn't kind of come across the finish line dead. I came across the finish line happy. You know, I've been on a bunch of these Team Saunders videos, and I've said throughout that I had 2 goals this year. One was I wanted to go to New Zealand and compete in Worlds. Didn't happen. And the other was I wanted to go sub 5 and a 70.3. I set PRs, but I'm not yet sub 5. So the glass half empty view is, hey, I failed at everything I tried to do this season. Yeah, it's real. I own that. You know, I wondered leading into this race and the weekend, like, was I gonna be sad? Was I gonna be jealous? Was I gonna be upset? It was really fun that they got to race before I did, because it kind of gave me a little motivation to go give it my best day to, you know, make sure that we all had a good weekend. We weren't in the same place, but as far as Ironman's concerned, we're still on the same team. When I look back on the 2024 season, I think I'm gonna really have a lot of good memories and be proud of what I did. It was a terrific year.